Hi, folks. Welcome back to Just Ask George. I'm David Wolf, affiliate banker, and I'm with George Lovato. He's the founder, principal, and head honcho of BH Capital. And
I always thought that head dude should be a title in corporate America.
We can do head dude. In fact, Steve, can we get a super underneath?
Right down head.
With an arrow pointing to his head. Okay. Anyway, folks, thanks for joining us again. As always, we're glad to have you here. We're going to make this another stupid without a license segment on Just Ask George. And
you say that with such enthusiasm.
Well, and this is affectionately titled Bank on the Run.
Bank on the Run.
So we had a bank story, and George does a lot of work as a consultant of finance or of the banking industry. So please.
Interestingly enough, this was a small minority-owned bank, and all the directors are business guys. They have zero banking experience, okay?
Mm-hmm.
The regulators are harassing and haranguing these guys to no end. I mean, they are in for an examination, and they are just devastating the call report. I mean, every single loan is practically classified. I mean, their ratios, loans to deposits are out of whack. They're below, the regulators are claiming they're below their 5% minimum capital requirement, which I get called because they just, they're sitting there going, what's going on? So they call me in, and I'm sort of reviewing the communications from the regulators, and I'm going, well, guys, this is serious stuff. And they're like, really? This isn't the way every examination goes? I said, no, it's not. They're supposed to go a lot smoother than this, and you're, right on the edge here of the cliff, and, if they push you off, they're going to padlock that door, and you're very close to doing for them to do that. So they said, well, what do we do? I said, well, I don't agree with what they've done here. I said, there's legitimate arguments on all the loans they want to classify, and certainly the manner in which they've disallowed certain things that they just got through allowing when you guys bought this bank as part of the contribution to capital, to your Tier 1 capital. And so that's kind of goofy. And then, I think they've legitimately miscalculated your loan-to-deposit ratio because they've got all these funky things going on with your loan classifications. And and then, they've just devastated your Community Lending Act policy. So, we need to get them out of here. And so the lawyers working for the bank at that time said, we can't do that. I said, well, and I looked at the board, maybe you should fire these guys. And so the board did, and I brought in some really good litigators, and they wound up, for the one and only time that it ever occurred, filed an injunction and kicked the regulators out. And in the end, we were able to make arrangements for another bank to come in and buy that bank. Because these guys, the story here is they had no business. They had money, but they had no business being in banking. And they had made this as an investment. And then all of a sudden they're coming in and they're taking time away from their businesses to manage something they know nothing about. Okay?
Yep.
And it just got worse and worse and worse. Yeah, and so then their businesses started hurting because they're focusing too much on the bank.
It's a lose-lose situation.
Right. It just keeps going.
Right.
And, it's really not about me and what I did. It was really a classic story of making an investment, becoming an operating officer, knowing nothing about the regulatory environment, and just basically, because of that, everything gets out of control.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what happened. I mean, if there was a way that I could condense that story, it would be the fact that because of what they didn't know, that's exactly how it got out of control.
Was there no one in the house that knew? Was there not a single, one guy or one woman who just knew anything about banking?
There was.
It was all committee thought.
From the top, it was all committee.
All right.
There were two in-house, lower-ranking banking bankers, okay? But they were really more, not that they weren't good bankers, but their jobs were to bring the business in and and punch those loans through the pipeline. Which they were very good at. Well, then all of a sudden, when the regulators come in and say, okay, you can't do that anymore, and then you ask those two people to change focus and then get involved over here, where they were never involved.
And they don't know anything about it.
In their prior engagements with other banks on the regulatory side, and they were sort of fish out of water at that point too. But they did have a lot more knowledge than the guys, in the ivory tower, so to speak. But it's a classic example of the old adage that you really should stick with what you know. Every time you step outside those boundaries, stuff happens.
Or at least have the mentor or the guidance and become the student of the thing you need to learn to know. I mean, that's a different way of approaching it.
But
they had businesses they were pulling on. The energies now, they're distracted. Those are suffering. I mean, that's another theme.
Well, that's the basic cause and effect is that they were so busy doing what they needed to do for the bank and trying to learn on the fly in the midst of a crisis that their businesses, their core businesses outside banking were really taking hits. One of them was a very large government contractor, and God bless that guy. I mean, he took his eye off the ball for almost a whole year, and it took him 3 years to rebuild that end of his business to get it back to the level it once was. So even after the bank went away, he still was suffering repercussions.
In recovery mode with his own business. It takes longer to come back, too.
Stay with what you know, and as you point out, then you need, if you're in a new area, then become the student to learn how to manage that opportunity.
And that's what I love about these segments, because we do get to learn. We do get to, for me, I'm like the audience advocate because I'm a student of finance, and we're grateful to George. That's why we call it Just Ask George. But you can visit us, folks, at www.bhcapitalltd.com. You can also go to the Obstacle Course Books.com for the writings of George Lovato Jr. Look for Stupid Without a License segments coming soon.
An ebook, a free ebook. Again, these video segments on Stupid Without a License will be woven in.
Content generation king, and that's what we do here.
They'll all be condensed into 8 or 10 stories, and they'll be available.
Yeah, stories you can learn from, and we're sure there are Stupid Without a License stories to come that we can't even imagine. What
last week I decided to kick one story out in favor of the jewel of a banker story of where's the government. We couldn't find the government loan guarantee for a construction loan. Remember that?
Government loan guarantee.
Yeah, remember I told you. Yeah.
And if you and folks, if you know of any really stupid stories, we'd love to hear from you as well. Of course, you can again visit www.bhcapitalltd.com or justaskgeorgeradio.com. Until next time, this has been Stupid Without a License on Just Ask George. We'll see you.
Bye.